Hey all, welcome to Voices of Data Protection. I'm your host Bhavanesh Rangarajan and I'm a Principal Program Manager at Microsoft. This series will feature the leaders, program managers from Microsoft and experts from the industry to share details about the latest solution and processes to help you manage your data, keep it safe and stay compliant. In this episode, I talk with Atle Skjekkeland. Let's get started. Hey Atle, thanks a lot for joining me today to talk about information governance. Why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself, Atle?
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Nice to be here. So I'm the CEO for Infotechtion, which is a consulting firm specializing in information protection and governance, especially for M365 and beyond. We have offices, staff in the US, UK, and Europe, and our clients are usually quite global, highly regulated companies, which we help all information in Office 365.
Oh, that's great. Atle, for today's meeting, right, as we all know, the pandemic and the work from home adds an extra layer of complexity for organizations who are already dealing with a lot of digital transformation with all the data explosion to manage the data. And, they're trying to keep it safe and stay compliant all the time. So how do you see organizations adapt to these changes? And what have been some of the main challenges that you've been hearing?
So I think I can try to summarize it in three main, challenges and priorities. The first one is quite obvious. It's like go virtual. It's like, okay, people need to be able to work from home. We need to scale that. And that might sound easier than it really is because it means that things like VPN, do we have enough VPNs and stuff like that for our on-premise solution suddenly became an issue. It was basically not only about leveraging there for teams and making that available to anybody, but also looking at can we fast track the move to the cloud to, ensure availability and reduce dependencies on secure logins via VPN or terminal servers. So go virtual was one. Second, I would say stay safe. And stay safe is not only, if you especially look at a virtual organization, those people that are now working across perhaps not only the country, but across the world, how to ensure they find the information they need to do their job, but also that sensitive information is protected. So that can't be downloaded or shared with people it shouldn't be shared with, and to ensure that when people work remotely, the information, the assets that the company sit on, it still stays safe. And the third and perhaps last one is because many companies, the revenue has been impacted by this. So we also see this as a big trend of, okay, how can we save money? How can we be smarter? How can we get rid of some of the stuff that we perhaps don't need? So we're seeing a lot of discussion about what are the ways I can reduce my operational expense. For example, do I have legacy IT systems that now can be replaced with M365? And if so, can I get that benefit quite fast? Because I can't afford for a 2 or 3 year migration program or replacement program. I will need to see the benefit, the cost savings within 12 months as the maximum. So those three things about going virtual, staying safe and secure, but also looking at we need to reduce operational cost, I would say perhaps the top three challenges.
Okay. So when we think about reducing operational cost, people are usually thinking about information governance as something that they do to meet compliance requirements, right? But it's, to my knowledge, I think it's much more than that. Can you tell me how an effective information protection program can be for organizations to increase the value of those programs?
Perhaps starting on the big picture before trying to answer your question. And how we look at it is that if you look at trying to improve customer engagement or employee engagement or ensuring operational excellence to be more efficient, that also, like compliance, requires good information management. And information governance is basically the people, process, technology you put in place to manage that information. So therefore, risk is just a small piece of the possibilities. There's many models available. Perhaps look at 4 possible benefits of improving how you manage and protect information. First is add value. What's the value of better connecting people, information, and insight? For example, in M365, can make it easy for people to find information based on country, business area, process, what type of information it is, instead of just search and the list just goes on. So narrowing down things. That's adding one example of adding value. Second is reducing cost. cost. How can managing information better help you reduce cost? One, of course, is to improve efficiency of making more efficient workplace, but it's also perhaps of implementing policies to get rid of information that doesn't have any value, which actually two benefits of that. One, it reduces your storage requirement, and especially if you have a lot of lawyers or customers that have a lot of lawyers, it can also significantly reduce your e-discovery cost.
Is that more on the lines of disposition that you're talking about?
Correct. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. So it's basically ensuring that records are identified and managed. And those that's not record, can you then automatically delete that? For example, a file that hasn't been modified for the last 3 years, then that's automatically deleted. So redundant, outdated, or trivial, or rot, that ought to put in dispositions of that to happen on a regular basis or ongoing. So those two first of the four, adding value, reducing cost. Third is minimizing risk. And of course, that's what most people think of regarding compliance and information governance. But reducing risk, it's not only about meeting regulations, but perhaps even more important is to meet the business standards, the business requirements, that this information has value for us for 30 years or 5 years. Okay, let's ensure we retain it then that long. And the last one is perhaps the most fluffy ones, but it's really about positioning that for the future. And that is, how can information help us identify new opportunities? For example, in Office 365, if you have used master data as metadata to manage the content, then you basically allow you in the future to connect the structural data with the unstructured information, which then becomes, you can almost think of that as the foundation for digital transformation in the future. So perhaps information can find you depending on what data you're looking for, and you can see the content, which is the context of the data you're working on.
Oh, okay. That's great. Based on the solution that we have rolled out in Microsoft, so can you point out some big win examples with some of the organizations that you've worked with who have directly experienced from having a solid and robust compliance and governance solution in place?
Oh, yes. The question is just how to do that in a couple of minutes. So let me try. So I have one, perhaps, which we worked a lot with. They basically realized that we need to better manage information to help people find it, but also to reduce risk, especially operational risk. Compliance was further down there. This organization has a highly regulated, around 40,000 users with offices around the world. But it was not only those two benefits they were looking for, or goals of improving access to information and reduced operational risk, but also how can I reduce cost at the same time? So how can I manage the information better, but reduce cost at the same time? Quite early in their journey, they actually invited in different technology providers, many of the leading content management, records management solution, and the team that evaluated it found that Microsoft Information Governance Suite was actually the preferred solution because it was perceived to have the best user experience and the most integrated approach. And that's actually now live for almost those 40,000 users with the following benefits. You have the improved access information that people can now search and find information based on business unit, process, and so on. You have the improved control. As an example, records management is automated based on what people are doing. So it's not like, please remember to think of this as a record and then classify it correctly. That happens automatically based on what people are working on. And third, again, one of the benefits they were looking for, objectives they're looking for, was reduce cost, because that entire program has then, first phase was setting the foundation in place, and that foundation is now used to replace the legacy system. So basically, when we finished replacing the last legacy system, you actually have a positive return of investment while you still got these other benefits.
I think a lot of information technology decision makers are aware, and they want to basically upgrade their information governance strategies as well. But they kind of, I feel, fail to justify the business case to their senior management. So what would be your recommendation to them? And the second part to this question, which I'd really love to add, is usually how long does it take for organizations to kind of, go through the process, set all these things up and get into the stable state motion of, having the right strategy in place?
Okay, so on the first part of your question, perhaps another 4 things. Let's see if I can get this. First is get the facts from the business. Are they struggling with finding information or trusting the information they find today? Have there been incidents? So it's really about mostly information availability, completeness, and trustworthiness. How does business feel that's working today? And usually tools like maturity assessment or service is a way to gather that. Second, gets the facts from legal and compliance. Are there regulations like GDPR or business standards, internal requirements have to meet? How well are those being met in systems? Are the risk and possible exposure? And three, get the facts from IT department, IT staff, especially around legacy system. Is there a hard business case there with an ROI based on replacing legacy systems? Just as an example, a leading content management system called Documentum, we found that had 1,500 users. We found that actually the annual cost of that in one organization was higher than the information protection and governance add-on license for 15,000 users. So there is a business case sometimes very in your face that can help you, justify that we need to prove this in addition to the other benefits. And based on those three things, then look at, okay, what are we trying to achieve as an organization? What's our IT strategy goal? And ensuring that your information governance and compliance goal supports that. So in the future, you can say, why are we doing this? We're doing this to achieve this based on the strategic roadmap or the business objectives, because it can't just be about risk. And it's really sometimes about thinking outside the box to say, how do we position this and how do we show value of managing information?
Okay, that's great.
And your second part of the question is like, okay, so how long will this take me?
Correct.
I think I always wish it could be faster. Actually, we try to make it as fast as possible. So, but sometimes you have to look at this in phases. You have to first look at, okay, we need a strategy in place. We need to decide what's important for us. And then we need a solution blueprint, the technical blueprint in place. That's the foundation. That can sometimes be done in 2 to 3 months.
This is always an evolving thing, right? It's not necessarily that it's going to be a one-way street. I mean, you're going to keep going back.
Yeah, scope creep is in the cloud. It's quite common because you have new technology opportunities that happens while you do it. But 2 to 3 months sometimes to get the foundation in place. But then you have to start looking at, okay, if I'm going to replace solutions, if you have to add governance on pre-existing solutions, and that's where you have to be really smart of how do I make this as quick as possible. For example, if I have a lot of network shared drive, can I do put that into Azure first, use a machine learning to extract learning and quickly get that out? If I have a lot of metadata on the content in a legacy system, can I map that and just do a lift and shift, or perhaps call it move and improve with metadata mapping to help people find and search for it? The length of those things is usually sometimes depending on the complexity and the volume. But first of all, of how identifying a right strategy and testing that out and verifying that this approach will work, and then stepping on the gas.
Okay. I think during these unprecedented times, it's so difficult to manage compliance strategies. How do you manage your perfect beard and hair?
So this beard came after working on an information management project for a client, and I was 5 weeks away on the road living at hotels. When I got home again, I decided I'm not going to shave for 5 weeks. I'm not going to wear a suit for 5 weeks to ensure I get balance back in life. And but since then, the suit had to come back on, but the beard stays. But I'm still waiting for my wife to give me a compliment for that.
I think it's worked really well for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So Atle, the last part of the podcast is like the quickfire round. So before we close out the session, I'm going to probably shoot a few terms at you, and I want to hear back from you what you think. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about these terms, right? First thing, information governance.
Mature customers, because most people don't even get what it means. It's the people that starting to realize that when you buy software as a service, then the vendor will own the software, that information is what you need to manage. It's information that will flow, and that's the asset for the future. And information governance is the framework around it. But I would say information governance is the mature customers, the people that really started to think about their future and the value of information. They're the one that gets it.
Remote work.
The new normal. I just believe that people have realized that the time wasted on commuting in office space for heads down work is not coming back. But heads up work, when you things like meetings and workshop, yes, you go to the office, perhaps a different type of office, but remote work, that's the new normal.
Records management.
Need for modernization. And what I mean by that is we meet way too many organizations that for records management have principles that was developed for the paper era. That all made sense. Like if our mountain, as an example, have stored a box for 10 years, let's get the box back and open it to decide what we should do before we make a decision. But you can't use that same principle in the digital era. You can't do that per record in the digital era in the volume and the increase in volume you see. So records management needs new principle to allow for scaling across the organization and automation. And there's a lot of the work we do is actually how to take records management and build it into the platform so it happens automatically.
Machine learning?
Machine learning? Okay, you can edit it. So machine learning, a colleague of mine used to say machine learning is like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it, very few people are doing it. I would say machine learning is a must-have in your plans and priorities, but you need to be very careful how fast you move forward with it to ensure that it actually provides value and the accuracy is as good. But I still think that any project need to have that as part of the components, because a machine might not be as smart all the time as a user, but they're more predictable. They're more consistent. So therefore, using machine learning to identify, capture, classify information is the way forward more and more. It's just not going to happen overnight.
Okay. Let me also ask you this then. Retention leading to disposition.
Careful. You need to be careful thinking and planning this. We see a lot of organizations that want to get rid of information, but usually it means you have to look at this in a phased approach. One, ensure that records are identified and classified so the important information get the correct retention and then perhaps auto deletion at the end, because disposition review for records, it's just you will be wasting a lot of time on that. Once you have a retention and disposition for records, then you can set auto policies in place for retention of non-records. Information hasn't been changed for a while, information that hasn't been updated for, say, the last 3 years, 4 years, and put policies in place to actually auto-delete that information. And the benefits of that is, one, you meet by ensuring your records are under control. You ensure that you can meet your business requirement for this information needs to be kept so long and so on, but also compliance requirements for getting rid of information, like information about people. And two, based on then deleting information that are not records automatically after, say, 3-4 years, that means you can reduce your stores requirements, you can reduce the e-discovery cost, and you can reduce search clutter. Because when people are looking for information, the search results are not going to be cluttered by hits that are not relevant. It helps them find important information in the search results.
Well, for disposition, I think the best answer is auto-delete based on a strategy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it actually means that in M365, you have now functionality to actually do more than an organization actually should be doing to manage information over time. The technology is not the weak link anymore. It's the framework and the principles they use to manage information. That's what needs to be improved, be modernized for the digital era, because then it's easy to actually configure and automate things in the system.
Got it. Okay. The last one, Microsoft 365 podcast.
Fun.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot, Atle, for talking to us today. It's been great.
Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Voices of Data Protection. To learn more about this episode, visit our show page for links and resources about all that we discussed at aka.ms/Voices of Data Protection. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe to the show. In our next episode, I'll be talking with Vivek Bhatt. Keep up with the latest on data protection in compliance by visiting aka.ms/Voices of Data Protection. See you all then.